Hello everyone, how's it going, and welcome to today's Wild Rift guide. In today's guide we're going to be taking a deeper dive look at Ahri. Ahri is an AP assassin mage. She's a mid lane champion that uses her abilities to crowd control, wave clear and burst down the enemies. Ahri excels at single target damage. With her charm and her other abilities on top, she's able to pick enemies off guard and deal a lot of damage. Taking a quick look at Ahri's build, obviously the main thing you want to build with Ahri is ability power, but you can have some other stats in there that will be very helpful. Ability haste to help with the cooldowns of Ahri, maximum mana, magic penetration and a lot more. So let's take a quick look through the build. RUNES Echo is kind of your go-to first item for Ahri. Gives you that ability power, gives you that little bit of maximum mana as well, which can be helpful in case you do run out of mana at times. Ability haste as well, and you also have the passive, which allows you to deal bonus magic damage. You got Death Cap as well, which will give you a lot more bonus ability power. Void Staff, which gives you ability power plus the magic penetration. Now you can go for other items as well, like Morellonomicon or Infinity Orb before that. You kind of have to depend it on the situation on the enemy team. If the enemy team is building a lot of magic resistance, then you want to build Void Staff as soon as possible, because that magic penetration will be able to penetrate through all the magic resist that the enemy is dealing. You then have Morellonomicon, which will give you the maximum health, some ability power and some magic penetration. This item is to do with applying Grievous Wounds. If you don't know what Grievous Wounds is basically reducing the healing when you deal damage to the enemy champions. So this is really good if the enemy champions have a lot of healing. Say they've got someone like Olaf, for example. Maybe they have an AD carry that has Bloodthirster early on. Grievous Wounds, Morellonomicon specifically, is a really good item to buy. If you don't want to build the full item of Morellonomicon, you can go for the tier 2 item, which is Oblivion Orb. This will also inflict Grievous Wounds as well. And then for your final item, you have Infinity Orb. Gives you a little bit of health, ability power, some movement speed and magic penetration. But a really nice part about this item is to do with the passive abilities and empowered attacks. Critically strike for 20% bonus damage against enemies below 35% health, which most of the time when you do a combo with Ahri, especially this late on in the game, when you buy Infinity Orb, you'll be able to deal a lot of damage, and hopefully with your Orb of Deception, with your charm and all your other abilities, you'll be able to critically strike and hopefully kill off the enemy champions. Now moving on to runes, Electrocute is a great rune for Ahri. Conqueror doesn't really work too well for her because most of the time she's got a few, one or two abilities that she wants to combo, which you won't be able to get the 5 stacks as soon as possible. So with Electrocute, hitting a champion with 3 separate attacks or abilities will deal bonus adaptive damage. That means if your charm hits, you can hit an Orb of Deception after that, and with Orb of Deception it does 2 types of damage, magic damage going on the way out and true damage coming on the way back. So if you hit both parts of the Orb of Deception, you'll be able to easily proc Electrocute just to deal that little bit of extra damage. You have Brutal for the extra AP as well, which will help Ahri at all stages of the game. You also have Adaptive Carapace, which gives you a little bit of extra health in the early game, and while below 50% health, you gain armor or magic resist based on the damage type you took more of over the last 60 seconds, which can be very helpful, especially in the lane phase, especially if you're looking for them trades and trying to look for that early game kill. And then you have Sweet Tooth as well, which increases the honey fruit healing, and whenever you or a nearby ally takes a honey fruit, you gain a little bit of extra gold. And for the spells, we have Flash, which you can combo very well with Ahri's abilities and just allows you to gain that short distance to try and escape or go towards the enemy champions. And then you have Ignite. Now most of the time when you charm an enemy champion, they'll go within Ignite range, so you need to make sure that you combo your charm with Ignite and with your other abilities just to deal that little bit of extra damage and hopefully kill off the enemy champions. Now to take a quick look through Ahri's abilities, first up is her passive, which is Essence Theft. You gain a stack of Essence Theft if her spell hits a target, and at 3 stacks, Ahri's next spell that hits an enemy heals her. Now the most important thing to know about this passive is knowing how many stacks you have. You can tell if I use my second ability here, you can see underneath the mana bar it will show how many stacks I have, and when I use 3 abilities and when they hit, you can see that now the third bar is purple, and that means that my next ability will heal me. So if I use the ability, all the stacks will go and I will now get healed. So it's actually really important to make sure that you try and use your first ability as much as possible when healing. Most of the time this will be your main ability that will be able to heal you the most, and it will allow you to stay healthy during the team fights. Now moving on to that first ability, we have Orb of Deception. It launches an orb that deals magic damage on the way out and true damage on the way back. Now this is Ahri's main source of damage, and being able to aim this ability is the most important thing for Ahri. You can see that it doesn't have the longest of range, but a few tips to give you for this ability. You want to make sure that you try and hit multiple, minions or multiple champions and minions at the same time. You'll see that in the gameplay a little bit later on. But when you use the ability, when damage goes out, you can see it does magic damage, and then coming back, it will deal true damage. Now, you can see what I did there. You can see that I used the ability at maximum distance for the target dummy. Now this is really important to note for enemy champions as well, making sure that you try and use the ability, especially during laning phase, at maximum distance. This means it will make it much harder for the enemy champion to dodge the true damage coming straight back, because most of the time it's not really the damage going out that does a lot, it's more the damage that comes back, because true damage ignores all the armor and magic resist that enemies will have. You can see when I use the ability, you can see that when you use it on the edge, it will deal both the magic damage and the true damage at the same time, which is really important. It's obviously the case as well when you use other abilities as well, like Charm. You want to use that with your first ability, and as you can see, when you hit it on the tip, it will do both magic damage and true damage. So just a little bit of a tip there. And obviously it's your main wave clear tool as well, so you can use the first ability to clear minion waves. Now next up we have Foxfire, which is the second ability. It releases 3 Foxfire spells that seek nearby enemies and deal magic damage. Now this is pretty important as well, because the priority of Foxfire is different depending on the situation. Obviously Foxfire prioritizes champions hit by the charm first, recently followed by recently attacked enemies, and then after that it can be just completely random, as you can see there. So if I don't hit any enemies, you can see that the Foxfire is just completely random. It can spread out to multiple enemies, so this is not really what you want to do. What you want to do is use your third ability and then use your Foxfire after that. And as you can see, when I use my charm, all the Foxfire, as you can see, all the Foxfires will be able to go on that target. Obviously, if they're in range, they weren't in range that time. If they're in range, all of Foxfire's abilities will be able to go onto that one target, obviously making sure that they're in range. So that's important as well, making sure that you're in range for Foxfire. As you can see, it's not really the longest range, so making sure you charm and then use Foxfire afterwards, and as long as they're still charmed, you can use other abilities, including your Orb of Deception as well after that. And obviously the important thing to note with Charm is that you'll be able to deal more damage as well. And obviously if you attack a target as well, Foxfire will just focus that one target that you're auto attacking as well. So obviously this is really important to make sure that your Foxfires deal single target damage and it doesn't spread across multiple minions or multiple champions as well. So making sure that you use this at the right time is really, really important. Moving on to the Charm, the third ability, it blows a kiss that deals magic damage and charms the first enemy hit, causing them to walk towards Ahri. And as mentioned, enemies hit by the charm take 20% more damage as well. So I've already showed you this ability, but as you can see, when you hit it, they will walk towards you, they'll be charmed, and if you use other abilities on top of this, they will be able to deal bonus damage, which is all really well and good. And then for the ultimate, you have Spirit Rush. It dashes forward and deals magic damage to 3 nearby enemies and can be cast up to 3 times within 10 seconds before it goes on cooldown. And the dash distance is increased per rank, and the bolts prioritize champions. So this ability is kind of your safe tool and also your engaged tool at the same time. When you have your ultimate up and available, especially during the laner phase, you can look to dash forward and try and get a kill, or you can even dash away to safety if you do get ganked as well. But as you can see, with the ability, it's pretty self-explanatory. All you have to do is just dash around, and you can use other abilities and everything as well at the same time, which is also really, really helpful. But yeah, like I said, it's just a pretty self-explanatory ability. Now, quickly going over combos. Now, combos is really important for Ahri. You have a few basic combos, like using your charm with your Orb of Deception afterwards with your second ability, making sure that you deal as much single target damage as possible. There is one other combo which I would recommend, which is actually in the gameplay as well, which I'll explain a little bit more afterwards. But you can actually use your charm or your first ability and use flash straight afterwards as well. And this is a really neat tool to kind of catch enemies off guard. So when you use the charm, if you're out of range of the charm, so I didn't mean to activate it, you can actually use flash straight afterwards and you actually gain distance. It's a little bit difficult at times. There you go. You need to actually hit flash pretty much straight afterwards, which can be a little bit difficult because you have to move quite quickly. As you can tell, it's not the most easiest thing to do, but there you go. There's a situation like that as well where you can actually use it to just flash straight afterwards. As you can see, it will increase the distance of the charm, and obviously most of the time this will catch enemies off guard because most of the time they'll be able to know, you know, the range of the charm. They'll be able to know how to dodge the charm. But if you can use your flash and if you can catch enemies off guard, that could be a really neat tool to use abilities afterwards and being able to kill off the enemy champion. Ricky, going through the skill priority with Ahri, at level 1 you want to go for your first ability. This ability will make sure that you can wave clear early on and poke down the enemy champion, which is a really important thing for Ahri. You then want to go for your third ability. Your third ability can combo with your first ability if you can catch enemies off guard early. Obviously, Ahri doesn't do the most damage in the early game, but if you can poke out the enemy champions, if you can push the wave as quick as possible, you can look to roam around the map and help your jungler, especially during them scuttle crabs early on. Then level 3, obviously, you want to go for your Foxfire, making sure you have all abilities available. And then you want to make sure you max your first ability. As mentioned before, your first ability is your main source of damage. This is a main ability and will be doing a lot of damage for you. And then after that, you want to max your Foxfire. Your Foxfire will be able to do more base damage, and also the cooldown will be lowered. So when you're using your charm, you'll be able to use your Foxfire more as well. And then lastly, obviously making sure that you go for your third ability and then leveling up your ultimate as soon as possible. But that's pretty much everything I want to explain with Ahri. I'm going to go into a full gameplay now and kind of explain a little bit more about the gameplay and the decisions that I make during the gameplay. So I'll see you all in a second. Alright, into the gameplay we go. I kind of took this kind of approach with gameplay. I wanted to explain more on the decisions that I make. More to do with obviously the rotations that I make, the laning phase I wanted to talk about as well. And one little thing I wanted to mention as well, obviously with Ahri, is that, you know, everyone's been talking about like counters and things like that, especially do with champions and Ahri. The most important thing is that you don't want to pick Ahri against Yasuo. You know, Yasuo is probably the worst champion you want to pick as an Ahri, or the worst champion to play against if you're playing Ahri, because obviously the wind will pretty much block all the abilities. Now you can see early on I was able to put a ward into the top side of the jungle. This early ward is just to kind of look for the rotations of the jungler to see what's actually happening early on. You can see that I'm pushing out the lane early on as well, and I'm trying to aim my Orb of Deception to try and get a little bit poke damage off on Diana, but I'm not really playing this laning phase too well. I have to admit, I'm getting hit by a lot of Qs early on from the Diana, which shouldn't really be the case. There you go, again, shouldn't really be the case, but you can see Diana jumps in here, and I was able to use my combo. The Charm plus the Orb of Deception is a huge combo, and obviously Diana is only melee range, so as long as you keep your distance to Diana, you can see that I can do a lot of damage. I use my Ignite as well. She's really low. I use the Flash Charm combo, but unfortunately she still had a barrier up and available. So you can see there, like, you know, keeping your distance is the main important thing when playing Ahri and when trying to use the combo. I actually want to go back as well and have a look at that situation again. You can see that Diana tried to play aggressively. She tried to jump in on the situation because she felt like she had an advantage because she used her first ability. She was able to jump. Obviously, the charm is the main important thing in the situation. Making sure you keep your charm up and available. As you can see there, you use Orb of Deception afterwards. As you can see, she's trying to use her passive. She has her passive up and available to do more damage. She jumps in again, but obviously she doesn't realize that I'm a rage champion. She's a melee champion. Flash Charm, which is obviously a really nice combo, but unfortunately we weren't able to get that last auto attack off. So obviously Ahri doesn't do the most damage in the early game, but especially against melee champions, if you can get that advantage. And now I can see that the Pantheon is now roaming. I could try and use a charm on top of my Orb of Deception. I get a kill there, and Evelyn gets another kill on Evelyn. So being able to take that trade in the early game against Diana actually gave my jungler a bit of an advantage and a bit of a kind of positive, you know, attitude in the end, I guess you could say, and allow Evelyn to push into the enemy jungle. She was able to find Pantheon, trade against Pantheon, and because I was a little bit healthier, I was able to roam, I was able to charm the Pantheon, kill off the Pantheon, and obviously Evelyn was able to kill off Diana. Obviously I died for it, which was a little bit unfortunate, but in the end we were able to win the trade-off, 2-for-1 trade. You know, that mid-jungle synergy is always really important. I took, unfortunately, a bit of a bad trade there. Sometimes you need to be a little bit careful with Diana's damage because she is a little bit strong at the moment. as you can tell with obviously all her shields and everything. I use my Foxfire there, but I make sure that before I use Foxfire, I was able to auto-attack. Missed my charm there, unfortunately, because Diana was able to dash. But the roam from the support Jarvan, funny enough, and obviously the Evelyn, was able to secure us this second kill, which is really, really nice. As you can see, I'm going to be using all my abilities and everything to try and push this lane as quick as possible to try and stop or deny Diana the farm that she needs. We're level 5 now, so we have Foxfire, not Foxfire, sorry, Spirit Rush up and available. We're going to go back and get our Blasting Wand. We're probably going to get Boots as well, eventually. We're going to get our boots as well. So going for Luna's Echo is the first item. Most of the time, you want to get Luna's Echo before the first dragon. If you can get a bit of advantage, you can get Luna's Echo quite early. As you can see, I've got 2 kills already, 1 assist and 1 death. So hasn't been the best early game, but obviously not the worst early game at the same time as well. Again, it's just trading off against Diana, which you have to be a little bit careful of with Ahri, because sometimes with Ahri, if you don't have your Spirit Rush up and available and your Flash as well, sometimes she can be a little bit vulnerable. So you need to make sure if you're against champions like Zed, like Yasuo, like Diana, you know, these sort of assassin champions, that you are very, very careful, because if you're Diana, if you can jump on as well, and if you can land the first ability, you can see that she can jump on and she can do a lot of damage. You can see I'm playing a little bit more careful now. I'm trying to dodge the first ability of Diana. Unfortunately, I thought I missed the cannon minion, but I actually got it in the end. So I was able to use Foxfire just to get that little bit of extra movement speed. As you can see, Diana's trying to jump in. I'm using my charm to make sure that she can't do enough damage. I'm using my Foxfire as well. And obviously all my Foxfires go onto Diana as well. I was able to dash out here, unfortunately, not of the ultimate, and I died in the end. A little bit of an unfortunate trade. I did make a few mistakes in this trade. I think dashing back in was kind of the main part of why I wasn't able to get the trade off. Obviously, here was a really, really bad trade. I was you know, kind of in melee range, and here I should have just backed out. I don't think I should have jumped back in here, which is kind of a little bit unfortunate. She used barrier, which obviously denies some of the damage as well, and obviously used her second ability for the shield. And yeah, unfortunately, we lost the 1-for-1 trade in the end. We lost the 1-for-1 battle, which is kind of, like I said, you know, kind of the weak part about Ahri. Obviously, her early game damage is not up there as one of the best. And sometimes, if you do get caught out, like for champions like Diana, like Zed, and like Yasuo, as I mentioned before, it can be a little bit difficult. I'm waiting to base here for Luna's Echo. We get Luna's Echo before the first dragon, which is really important. Obviously, Diana's ultimate is not up and available as well. Everyone has started the dragon here, which is very, very risky because the rest of the team is not here. Pantheon ulti is coming in as well, which can be a little bit scary. Diana flashes over the wall here, which is a little bit over aggressive, but she was able to jump back as well, and you can see loads of enemies are low on health. So I tried to steal it with the Orb of Deception there, which I wasn't able to. And my main part here is to try and stay back and use my charm and use my other abilities, as you can see there, to try and deal as much damage as possible. You can see the Pantheon dies for it. You can see the Darius will eventually die as well. So in the end, we didn't take the dragon, but we did win the team fight. They went a little bit over aggressive, but the Diana went a little bit too deep over the wall trying to kill off Evelyn. I think she wanted to kill Evelyn to try and get the dragon secure for her team, which they took the dragon anyway, but we won the team fight, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world. To go back to laning phase now, you can see that most of the time with Ahri, you want to make sure you try and push the wave in, especially someone against like a Diana as well. If you push the wave as an Ahri, especially in the early game, you can look to roam around the map. You can see here, Diana's looking to roam because she was able to push in the mid wave. But for now, we both have mid lane priority. You can see that I'm using my Orb of Deception to try and clear the mid wave as quick as possible. And now that I've cleared the mid wave, I can look to try and roam. She might lose a few minions for this. Now I'm the charm again onto Diana, but I have to be a little bit careful. You can see I'm being a little bit careful here because of Diana's ultimate, which you can see there. I'm going to try and save Evelyn here with my Spirit Rush, which is really, really nice. You can see the main part with Ahri is just keeping your distance. That's the main thing with Ahri. If you can keep your distance, you'll be able to do a lot of damage. As you can see, Jarvan was able to roam up as well as support, which leaves Caitlyn by herself, which unfortunately she wasn't able to survive that bot lane dive. But we're able to win that top lane fight. No one took the Rift Herald in the end, but we're able to get a few more kills and a few more assists under our belt, which is really, really nice. Going for Nisi Large Rod, which is obviously one of the components for Death Cap, and going for the Lucidity Boots. Though I actually changed my situation. I didn't actually go for Nisi Large Rod. I went for Lucidity Boots in the end. Now, Lucidity Boots gives you ability haste early on, and obviously gives you the extra cooldown, ability haste cooldown, you know, same sort of thing. And that's the kind of the main thing with Ahri is kind of making sure you have as much ability haste as possible as well, because you want to make sure you use your abilities all the time. You can see we have another Rift Herald fight here. Evelyn is trying to jump in, and again you can see I'm trying to aim my charm, I'm trying to land my charm. Unfortunately I missed my charm. It can be a little bit difficult to land your charm at time. It doesn't have the biggest width, I must admit, so you need to make sure you have it up and available. Now as you can see here, I'm playing aggressive because I know my Spirit Rush is up and available. I dash in, I was able to use my Spirit Rush to kill Pantheon. I know Dinah's going to flash here, so I save my third Spirit Rush, and I'm able to get a nice and quick triple kill. Now, the most important thing to note there is that obviously the main thing, as I mentioned, you know, keeping your distance, but again, making sure you keep your Spirit Rush up and available. I know Dinah was moving towards a wall. I know that she was probably had her ultimate, not her ultimate, sorry, her flash still up and available. So I used 2 charges on my Spirit Rush, one to go in onto the Pantheon to get the killing blow, and then one to move away back from Dinah again and move towards my team a little bit more. And then keeping the third one up and available just in case Dinah does have flash, so I can dash over the wall, deal more damage, and kill off the Dinah, which was really, really nice. So I moved into the bot lane there just to clear the farm, but Malphite was there as well. Again, moving into the mid lane, trying to get that mid lane priority. You can see that I'll probably use my abilities here to try and push the wave as quick as possible. And again, this is kind of your main thing as a mid laner. We land another charm here onto Dinah. I think the Malphite ultimate is going to be really good here as well, which is really nice. We use my Spirit Rush to go in here to try and do a little bit of extra damage, and we're able to get the mid tower for it. So again, with Ahri, as I mentioned before, it's all about getting the picks. It's all about using your charm to try and get picks on the enemy champions. And if you can get the picks, you can use champions like Evelyn, like Jarvan, you know, any sort of champion really that has any sort of engage to kind of follow up on Ahri's damage, or Ahri's charm, sorry, to be able to kill off the enemy champion. So you can see we're on a pretty big advantage now. 17 kills to 7. We have 6 kills to 2. We now have our death cap up and available as well now to be able to just deal a lot of extra AP damage, which is really, really nice. I'm moving into this we're sort of still in the early game, but moving more into the mid game now, because obviously some of the towers has gone down. Obviously the early, mid, and late game is a little bit different to Wild Rift compared to PC League of Legends. So making sure that we have that, you know, push in mid lane, and again trying to land our charms. You can see Jarvan trying to follow up afterwards. The one thing that does counter Ahri is definitely tenacity. If enemy champions build Merc Treads, if they build any sort of you know, tenacity, it can be really, really annoying for Ahri because it will reduce the duration of the charm. You can see I tried to use my Spirit Rush aggressively there to try and land the charm. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to land it. And you can see my main purpose here is just to try and zone the enemies off from the dragon. Pantheon uses his ultimate, which is a little bit too late. We're able to kill off the Pantheon here as well, and also the Diana afterwards, making us unstoppable. And you can see, sometimes you can use your Spirit Rush aggressively. You can see I use my Spirit Rush aggressively. I tried to zone out the enemy champions, which they were kind of a little bit worried for me, because obviously making sure that you use your charm aggressively and making sure you use your charm to kind of zone the enemies or pick off the enemies is really, really important. As you can see, the surrender vote came in and we'll be able to get the victory, which is really, really nice. Hopefully I'll be able to show the damage as well. I think I did the most damage in this game as well. Grandmaster sitting comfortably, 199 LP, 1 LP away off 200, which is a little bit unfortunate. Obviously, making sure that we give a thumbs up to everyone that we like. Now, as you can see there, 14,000 damage. A pretty clean game overall. Unfortunately, we did get solo killed in the mid lane, but hopefully you can learn a thing or two off of that, because, as I said, sometimes you do need to play a little bit safe as Ahri in the early game. As you can see, 14,000 damage, most damage in the game. Again, using our charm as kind of a threat to make sure that the enemies kind of fear us in a way, which is the most important thing. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that I have to say about Ahri. Hopefully this was very insightful. Hopefully you learned a thing or two about Ahri. Again, next up is Akali on our A to Z guide, so it's going to be good fun playing Ahri. I'm not really looking forward to it, I have to say. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but yeah, hopefully you learned a thing or two. Thanks for tuning into the video. If you have any questions or anything, let me know. Leave them down in the comments. As always, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel for more Wild Rift content, and I'll see you all very soon. Peace.